Welcome to another episode of the C-Suite Edge. I'm your host, John Light. I'm also the CEO and founder of Sabretooth Recruiting. And today, it's pretty exciting. I get to talk with another person in the recruiting business as a headhunter, Lou DePaoli, who is the president of General Sports Worldwide. Lou, thanks so much for joining me today.
John, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You know, between the two of us, I wonder if we have the kind of voices we need for radio. I'm going to go call a baseball game or something.
You know what? That actually sounds pretty good. I originally went to school. I wanted to be a sportscaster, and it didn't work out. So I had a career as a senior executive for many years.
Oh, man. Well, you know, you swung the bat, and the ball just didn't quite go where you expected it to.
Correct. That's what happens.
Which is, pretty interesting, because I got into the talent acquisition business, a headhunter, recruiter, if you will, by accident. I started off life as an accountant, which is not a very thrilling place, but it paid the bills for a few years early on in the career until I just kind of stumbled into what I do now. But I'm curious, because you kind of touched on that already. Maybe, though, you could take a minute and talk a little bit about General Sports Worldwide. How did you land there? And in conjunction with that, I hate to have this compound question for you. I think it'd be a great time to go ahead and maybe let's address what the big elephant in the room for any organization, and that's talent.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, I'll give you the quick, overview of my career and how I got here. So I've spent 30 plus years now working in the professional sports industry, starting off in minor league hockey. I've spent 16 years in Major League Baseball, 8 years in the NBA, 5 years in hockey, all in senior level business positions. So not running, the sport side, but running the business.
Right.
And, working for great brands such as like the New York Mets, the Pittsburgh Pirates, the Atlanta Hawks. I actually worked for the NBA league office, in Manhattan for about 5 years, minor league hockey, et cetera. And, one thing that happens in sports is sports teams get sold. And a lot of times when, a team gets sold, the new owner wants to bring in their own leadership team. And after 7.5 years of being with the New York Mets, when they were sold back in late 2020, the new owner, Steve Cohen, who's a wonderful guy and he's doing great things with the Mets now, just said, you know what? He wanted to bring in a new leadership team, and that was fine. So that led me to General Sports Worldwide, where a longtime friend of mine, Andy Appleby, was the chairman and founder of General Sports. And he was looking to help grow the brand of General Sports into more of a consultancy here in the U.S. I added in, what I bring to the table in terms of consulting and recruiting. And then we have a very huge presence in Europe right now, where we are actually agents for players. We do mergers and acquisitions. We do consulting for clubs in the EPL. So we have a lot on our plates, but, I brought to the table the consulting and then based on my background, the recruiting.
Yeah, wow. Okay. Well, that's a mouthful, right?
Yeah. I was trying to be concise.
Well, I know we were talking a little bit pre-show. I guess we could say pre-game. We're all feeling very sporty right now. But we're having this conversation, and you bring up this really, I think, fascinating point, because this, as a headhunter on the outside, any chance you have to go in and assess current state at a client is extremely valuable. Not just to, well, can I capture transactions? Can I do this other sort of thing? But in being a true consultative advisor who is delivering something that they otherwise aren't going to get, which in this case isn't just talent. It's the right talent doing the right thing at the right time in the right way, aligned with the culture and so on and so forth. And I know that you and I are both aligned with the idea that talent makes the world go around. I mean, you can have the greatest strategy, the greatest game plan in the world.
Yep.
If you don't have the talent to execute it, you're toast.
Yep.
So I'm hoping maybe you could spend a couple, 3 minutes or more even and address your thoughts around how important it is to get it right when it comes to the talent game.
Yeah, it's crucial, specifically in the sports industry, just because most people are familiar on the sporting side of things, whether it's baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever it may be, the sport. The general manager is generally responsible for putting on a winning product on the court, on the ice, whatever. That requires talent. That requires execution. That requires, some sort of a game plan, right? And a good culture. So there's a lot of these things. But for years on the business side, that was neglected. It was looked at as when the team won games, people will show up. And if the team didn't win games, people would not show up. Now, 35, 40 years ago, that was fine when your average, major league franchise was worth, maybe $100 million on the high side. Now, your average club, in one of the big four in the U.S. is in the billions. So you got to run it like a real business. And I think that was one of the keys for us, and all the stops I had in my career. Step one, the first thing I did when they hired me was to evaluate the talent. What did we have? And if we didn't have enough or we didn't have good enough, we had to make those changes. And then from there, it was putting in a plan, having the right structure, right, having the right culture, making sure that we have the right game plan, like all of that stuff, so that everything could come together. And that's one of the things now that we do for clients because, I mentioned these clubs that I worked for. I worked for the Marlins back in the 90s, back when they were the Florida Marlins in baseball, when they won the World Series in 1997. And then I worked for the NBA league office where my job was to consult for the NBA and WNBA clubs on how to run the business better, right? There was a few of us that were on the road working with the clubs. When I got to the Atlanta Hawks and Atlanta Thrashers, when I got to the Pittsburgh Pirates, when I got to the New York Mets, the first thing I did, and I still do today, is I evaluate the talent. Because, as you said earlier, John, if you don't have the right talent, you can have the right game plan, you can have the right culture, but if you don't have the people to get you there, you might get there, but it's just going to take a lot longer and it's going to be a lot harder than it needs to. So we spent a lot of time in my career building great talent, hiring it, developing it, making sure it was nurtured, developed. We put a lot of money into making sure we had training to make sure these people could be the best they could be. One of the things we always looked at was, they use this a lot in baseball as a term of someone has a high ceiling, right? Someone's a high potential. And I used to say to my staff, even if we were hiring somebody out of college, 22, 23 years old, maybe their first job, they were going to sell tickets for us or some other job, don't just hire people to fill the seat. Hire someone that could take my job someday. Right? Look to have someone who can run this business and that is serious about having a career here. They don't care if you're working for the Mets or the Pirates or who you're working for. They want to work in this industry. They want a career here. They want to develop. They want to be a sponge, and they want to just take this to the next level. That's who you hire.
All right, I have to ask, and this is a general reference point.
Yeah.
Out of every 100 candidates, any given job, how many fit that criteria, do you think?
In all honesty,
2
to 3.
Yeah, that kind of jibes where I would go with this because, one of the big challenges in hiring is that, and let me preface it by saying, I hear a lot of executives talk about how important talent is, but they don't put their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
Or they do it in a way that doesn't reflect the priority that the talent is that critical to their success. And you end up having people that become numbers on a spreadsheet rather than resources, positive resources that can have a tremendous positive value impact on your business, on your organization. And you're in an industry that on one side of the house values talent above almost everything else.
Yes.
And, to hear, I understand what you're saying. I think is whether we like them or dislike them, owners who came in and changed that paradigm and made the sporting event an entertainment event too.
Yeah.
Did a lot for the value of these franchises. and across the stage, and not just here, over in Europe as well, and,
Yep.
and other areas. I mean, some of those soccer clubs are massive. I mean, we don't understand how massive they are.
Yeah.
The closest analogy we have might be baseball clubs with their farm teams, maybe, but these guys go all the way down into, 10-year-olds, U10s and U12s and whatnot.
Yep.
So, in your experience, when you look out over the landscape, how many organizations are actually going out and hiring those 2 or 3 out of 100 versus, you know what, we need a butt and a chair?
You know what? Unfortunately, that's also a small number. And what happens is there are teams or organizations, I should say, that have a history of developing great talent on the field or on the court. But there's other organizations that have really great histories of developing front office talent because they take it seriously, usually from the owner or president on down. They decide that talent is a priority. Because, the old adage was when you win, you'll sell more, and when you don't win, you'll sell less. Some people don't accept that, right? I never accepted that. It's like, okay, I worked for some really bad teams, okay? They did not perform well. They had the worst record in the sport multiple years in a row, but yet we kept growing our business. And people used to think, how are you doing this? Your team is terrible. You know why? Because we had the right people. We were finding the right 2 or 3%, putting with leaders who are also in that top 2 or 3%. The line we always use, like we'd hire A players, right? Because A's hire other A's. Once you start lowering your standards and hiring B's, then you get B's and C's. And then once you put C's in charge, you're getting C's and D's and F's, and you're never going to make it. Yeah. So it was always imperative for us. Because in sports, especially in a market like New York, everybody, we put a job out there, everybody wants to work in baseball. Everybody wants to work for the Mets. We had to be very careful not just to fill a seat. Yeah. We wanted every hire to be of the highest quality. Now, you don't bat 1,000, okay?
Oh, sure. But no one does.
Our batting average was pretty good. At all the places I've been, because we put in the right structure and put in the right leaders to do the hiring. And then from there, once you get the talent, now you got to have a game plan. Now you've got to have some sort of a progression plan for them, right? What does that look like? What does future mapping look like for them? But then you got to execute. You got to have a great culture. Like you have to continue to do the rest of the pieces of the puzzle because talent alone isn't going to win you the games.
Right.
Right? So talent alone won't drive your business forward.
What was it, the big argument in the 90s between Jordan and the Bulls ownership? One said it's about the talent and the team. The other said it's about the organization. And in truth, it's a partnership, right?
Yes.
Because I've seen some well-talented people who ended up in some amazing places in their career, and they're humble enough to point out that, yeah, I was talented and inclined this way, but it ended up this other way, and I've gone further than I thought because I had the right mentor, or I had the right coach, or the right person who said, "Hey, look, let me help." Yeah. And that can be really hard to find because help carries with it the implication that there could be some criticism. And man, our egos can get really tender.
No doubt. No doubt.
Really tender. Let me ask you this question, Luke, because I think this is really relevant. If a person wanted to get into the business side of sports, and you see colleges now that you can get a degree, an undergraduate in something that's sports related. Yep. But I mean, you need marketing people, you need accounting people, you need people who understand finance, you need people who understand how to drive revenue and marketing, all these different areas. What's the best way you think for somebody who's interested in that space to raise the flag and get noticed?
It's interesting because a lot of people want to work in the industry, as I said earlier. Whether it's in finance, whether it's in sales, whether it's in communications or PR, or in operations, people want to work in sports, and there's a lot of competition. So I would always tell people when we were looking to hire, or we're doing this on behalf of our clients currently, is you want to find people who want a career in this industry. like that they take this seriously and they're looking to have an impact. They're not looking to work for the Texas Rangers because they're a big Texas Rangers fan, right? Or when I was in Pittsburgh, I'd have so many people say, oh, I'm a diehard, lifelong Pirates fan. We generally hired people who were not Pirates fans.
Interesting.
People who were from outside of the marketplace.
Okay.
Because one of the things that I found was that, a lot of organizations, whether I was in Atlanta, whether I was in Pittsburgh when I first got to New York, they hired local, they hired people who were big fans of the team. Now, every now and then there were some A players there, but it was mostly B's and C's. They were happy to be there, right? This was their dream job. I get to go to Citi Field or PNC Park every day. That doesn't mean that you're motivated or you're driven. Right? This just meant you were kind of happy to be there. And you know what? You would do enough to kind of get by, and that was fine. But if you really want to grow that business, we recruited from all over the country. And we relocated people to Pittsburgh, never been there before, never been to a Pirates game. In some cases, I can remember hiring some people. They weren't even baseball fans, but they were fans of business and the business of sport.
Yeah.
And they came in and didn't prejudge the marketplace, didn't worry about the team's history. And they came in and they did an amazing job.
Wow.
Right? That's when you know you've done it right.
I think that's brilliant. I think that's innovative. And I think more organizations need to put that kind of care and concern and investment and resources in the attraction, curation, hiring of high quality talent, because it's one of the hardest things you do.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Lou, because people may want to dive deeper, and I know our time is going to run out here eventually. I feel like, man, if we had runway this afternoon, we could talk for a while.
For a while.
Oh, absolutely. But if somebody does want to connect with you and learn more, what's the best way for them to find you and to find General Sports worldwide?
The best thing to do is just reach out to me on LinkedIn. My profile is pretty straightforward. It's my name, Lou DePaoli. You can see it right here on screen for those who are maybe watching, or if not, it's Lou, DePaoli, at LinkedIn. You'll find me. Or if someone wanted to know more about General Sports, they could go to our website. It's generalsportsworldwide.com. That'll tell you a little bit more about what we do and who some of our people are. But I think sometimes the best thing is to just reach out on LinkedIn. I'm pretty quick to respond in most cases. We can set up a quick phone call if you're looking for some advice. I just love trying to pay it forward and help people out and get more really talented people into the funnel or the ecosystem of sports business, and then see if we can continue having this immense growth that you've seen in sports over the last 15, 20 years continue.
That's awesome. Lou, thanks so much for joining me today.
My pleasure, John. Great chat.